What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to How's It Going to End? How you doing? That's great. This is going to be just another transition into a conversation I got to talk with someone I was lucky enough to talk with. Daniel Hart, composer of The Green Knight, David Lowery's movie The Green Knight that just came out a couple weeks ago. And that was fucking awesome. I never thought I'd be able to talk to someone that deep into a production cycle, or like that into that level of film production. So that was really interesting getting to talk with him. So I'm just gonna shoot the shit for 15 minutes because I'll attach the interview on to the back end of this, so you get to have some type of regular right before I go. What the hell happened to you? Oh, it's blood, not real blood. I'm talking to my fucking thing. I don't know. I just wanted to get like a little quick intro to stuff like that, to that interview, because ran a little short, but can add something like this on. What's going on? There's a fucking hurricane or a tornado warning in New York City right now. Flash flood warning, hurricane shit. Because it's the end of the world. The world's ending. And, oh wow, I have to focus. What do we talk about? What can I talk about for 15 minutes that'll take up 15 minutes before I have to leave? We can talk about the Spider-Man trailer. Spider-Man No Way Home finally dropped a trailer. Finally dropped its trailer after months and months of people freaking out about it. And it was all right. I liked some parts of it. There was some of it I didn't like. I'm finding that the key thing that's really turning me off to Tom Holland Spider-Man movies is not Tom Holland. It's just the surrounding writing for him and his movies. They always just come off as like Disney Channel, mid-2000s Disney Channel movie plots. Those original movies? Let's watch a Disney Channel movie. Remember that shit? Anyone remember that shit? Those movies are always awful, but they're good in nostalgia. But the plots are always ridiculous, and that's how these movie plots always come off to me. It's always something like, Tom wants to take the girl to homecoming. It comes off so fucking lazy to me personally. I think it's just lazy fucking writing. But that doesn't mean Holland isn't a good actor. I think he's a great actor when he's not doing something for Disney. But the trailer looked fine, A lot of theories going around. Doctor Strange. A lot of theories. I think that, I really hope, not hope, that's the wrong word. I think it'll be so funny if the movie comes out and there's nothing wrong with Doctor Strange's character. They just wrote him like that now because Peter needs to have a quirky and quippy mentor that breaks the rules. In place of Tony Stark. That's the major plus for the trailer I'll give it, is not one mention of Tony Stark. Thank fucking God. Not one mention of Iron Man in a Spider-Man movie. Thank God. Highlight of the trailer is obviously seeing Alfred Molina as Doc Ock at the end. That was the shit. Are you focused? There you go. Alfred Molina is back as Doc Ock, super de-aged in CG, which he was all right. I don't know. I think they got a little too big for their britches there. I mean, it is just a trailer, but still, they figured out with the Irishman, with Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, that you can't get rid of old men's saggy neck. So I think they just put him in a lucky enough the character wears like a turtleneck, so they can just put that up to his fucking chin because he's got that old man neck. So it looks super CG, but it looks fine. I'm looking forward to his performance. He's a great actor. And Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 is probably the top 3 best villain portrayals in comic book movies ever, and he's awesome. So that's going to be something to look forward to 100%. And we also got to see Green Goblin from Raimi's movies, his what's it fucking called? The Pumpkin Bomb. And we're hearing about Electro and all, and it's just it looks like they're really setting up a whole multiverse thing. They're bringing in all these characters. I'm trying my hardest to accept the idea that maybe this isn't just a fan service thing to include all these characters. It's in my experience watching Holland's Spider-Man movies. There's been little substance personally. I've found I don't think that a lot of it grounds itself in any actual substance, but. And I think that it's a little ridiculous to expect a multiverse introduction to follow any type of substance too. It's everyone wants to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. That's the main reason. All you have to do for this movie is do that, and you're going to make $1 billion. Why try harder? You know what I mean? And that's Disney's fucking MO to a T. So, but. Despite that, I'm interested. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. I want the nostalgia trip. I want to think it's 2004 again. And this is a great ramp in to get excited for Multiverse of Madness, directed by Sam Raimi. Fuck yeah, that's all that matters. Who gives a shit about anything else? That's my most anticipated Marvel project right now, because of Raimi and Michael Waldron. I think it worked on that too. Who also did Loki, so that's gonna be the shit, man. That's the shit. I wish that. I mean, I think they confirmed somewhere. Maybe Watts confirmed somewhere that it is the Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, which sucks because it ended. His story ended perfectly. Everyone. You're hearing more and more now the perfect arc, and it's annoying to have to repeat it and all that, but it is. He had a perfect arc. He was corrupted. He overcame that corruption through sheer will, and he sacrificed himself, and it was fucking awesome. And it's perfect, and it's untouchable. And he's back now, not because, hey, fans, look, give us your money, but because of some whatever fucking reason they're going to come up with. I love seeing the people go, oh, look, the Claw's lights are red, which means he's under control of the Claws, which means his arc isn't ruined. It's like, oh, that's all it took to ruin his arc? It wasn't the fact that he forced the Claws to obey to him. And he overcame the control chip in the back of his head in Spider-Man 2 that made such an impactful moment for his character. No, we're going to just get rid of that because the Claws are back in control. That could happen at any time then. That's fucking lame. That's a fucking cop-out. And any other reason, that's the thing, is people are kind of like, they don't want to line with the idea that it is a cop-out whatever they come up with. Because it is a cop-out, whatever they come up with. Any form of story that they come up with after that perfect character arc is just an excuse to have him, to include him. You know what? It doesn't have to be that version. Like any idea that they come up with, like, oh, just before he drowned or just before he took down the fusion thing, the portal came in and pulled him out, and then the Claws took over again. Like that's any theory you have surrounding why this specific Doc Ock is back is a cop-out to the character. 100%. It doesn't have to be him. It could be a variant. We've established that already. You know what I mean? It does not have to be that one. It could be just another fucking Alfred Molina looking Doc Ock. Doesn't have to be him. It could be one that didn't learn his lesson so that when he sees Toby's Peter, we actually have an interesting conflict. But I'm gonna. This is not me bitching about like it's not like I'm not gonna not see this. Too many negatives. It's not like I'm not gonna see this movie. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm gonna fucking see it, and it's gonna be insane. I do, like I said this a couple months ago. I have issue with Holland saying this is the most whatever standalone Spider-Man movie. Not a standalone Spider-Man movie. Sorry, guys. I said this on Instagram. Like that's like calling Captain America: Civil War not an Avengers movie. It's an Avengers movie. You have you have the Avengers in it and 2 more characters. That's an Avengers movie. It's not Captain America 3. That's Avengers fucking 3, right? That came out after Ultron. Yeah. So I'm 100% anticipating that there's nothing wrong with Strange. I think like now the Mephisto ideas are flying out because They're going strictly to that one fucking comic, One More Day, I think it was called, where Peter asks Strange to to erase everyone's mind because he said he was Spider-Man, and Strange said no in the comic, and then Peter goes to, or I guess Mephisto goes to Peter, and he makes a deal with Mephisto and yada yada, and that's what people are like kind of tying into it. But I think they just genuinely wrote Strange now as that kind of character to be like, yeah, hey, like to get into fucking, rambunctious adventures with Peter. Like Wong being like, it's dangerous, don't do it. Like every other version of Strange would have been like, okay, obviously not. I'm not a moron. I'm not going to do it. But this one is willing to, not think about all of space-time for a second and do this one wish for this teenager. I don't know. It seemed dumb. And then the rest of the trailer, he's ridiculing him. He's like, you can't keep living two lives. The multiverse is stuff we don't know anything about. It's like, all right, then why did you fucking, be responsible? Isn't your character, like, strict and responsible? Isn't he supposed to be like the way that everyone wrote you was you're the counterbalance to Tony Stark? Tony Stark shows up and is ridiculous, and you kind of ground him, and now suddenly you're written like Tony. That's the thing. You can't fucking sell a Spider-Man movie now with just Spider-Man these days. But it makes sense. That's the thing with a shared universe. You have every character in one fucking timeline, then you're going to include every character any chance you get. The problem with that is it fucking substitutes for actual quality and content and substance. Well, what are you going to do? I think I actually got that out. That's mostly what I want to talk about when it comes to the Spider-Man trailer. I was so excited that I got to talk with Daniel Hart. If you haven't seen The Green Knight, it's a fucking awesome Arthurian type of like King Arthur, medieval times, Middle Ages movie. And it's produced by A24, so it's as creative as possible. It does whatever. It's so cool to see something 100% creative. And that's why, A24 is killing it. But getting to talk with composer was really interesting because it's not what people usually pick up from when it comes to like how it's very rare that a movie score really sticks with people. I don't think that happens a lot with people. Not with at least with the casual viewer, the people who just go see the movies. And that's not me basing myself higher. I don't listen to every fucking, score in every movie. Sometimes there's a specific one that'll stand out. And definitely this was one of them because it sounds unlike anything else. And I didn't realize that he had worked with the director, David Lowery, for every one of David Lowery's movies. And I think about it, I'm like, I look back, I watched The Old Man and the Gun and A Ghost Story, both David Lowery movies, and he had worked on those movies too. And I think back, like I guess I didn't recognize the sound, which is interesting to me. But getting to talk with him was insane. That's so cool having that direct line to someone that high in a film's production. Did not expect that. Did not expect that at all. And it was really awesome, and it was very kind of him to talk with me. So I'm going to attach that to the back of this. I think this is fucking... I mean, what else do I have to talk about before now? I got the Spider-Man shit out of the way. That's what everyone else fucking cares about anyways. All right. That's going to be it, man. Cool to cap this off. I don't have an ending at the end of that discussion with him, so I'm going to do that here. Follow the podcast on YouTube, obviously. Subscribe on YouTube, Comedian of Cinema, my channel. Follow the podcast also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. How's it going to end? Leave a rate and review on Apple Podcasts if you could. That'd be fucking cool because it helps. It helps a lot, I guess. I don't know. I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing any of this right. I don't have any producing, anything. I'm just recording and talking into a microphone, and then I'm putting it on the internet. But what else what else can you do these days other than that, And, dude, I'm going to just talk about this real quick. Viola Davis fucking reposted a post of mine. What? Huh? That was crazy. I thought that was insane. So, yeah, every once in a while I get depressed and I fall into that like lull of like, why do I even create anything? And then something like that happens and I'm like, I know why I make stuff. So, yeah, That was cool. All right, stick around, listen to me talking with Daniel Hart about his feature composing experience and stories and stuff like that. All right, see you. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to How's It Going to End? How are you doing? That's great. Today I am joined by someone who's worked on a couple of my personal favorite films, like A Ghost Story and The Old Man and the Gun, but most recently, another David Lowery film, his Arthurian retelling of The Green Knight, composer Daniel Hart. How you doing?
Hey, Tim. Good. How are you?
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. This means a lot. Something I've been deciding to ask people who work in a professional capacity whenever I get the chance to talk to them is, how is the last year and a half from the most cramped parts of quarantine to production for stuff starting to slowly open back up again safely? How has that impacted you creatively?
The beginning of the pandemic was challenging to find creative motivation, to want to work when it feels like something much more important and dangerous than work is affecting everyone in the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, it made it hard to focus on expressing things creatively for a while. And then once lockdowns and unfortunately lots of deaths became more regular, I found that I could get back to work. And other than that, yeah, there was a TV show that I was supposed to do the music for that got canceled because of the pandemic. Several projects that I was working on had their schedules delayed by the pandemic, whether it was for filming or for post-production. And maybe the biggest difference to a film would have been for The Green Knight, because it was supposed to originally be released in theaters in May of 2020. And then A24 decided to pull that theatrical release and hold the film because they wanted to release it in theaters first, but they wanted to do it at a time when people could go to the theater somewhat safely, at least. Yeah. And so they waited until this year, which meant that David Lowery, the director, just went back to work on the film, and he
I heard he took it out of the lock and he re-edited it, and I actually found that extremely interesting. He's such a captivating filmmaker, and hearing him talk about re-editing it with like lenses of love instead of how he felt before, maybe was I thought very interesting. So
yeah.
Did you talk with him during that time?
I did, yeah, because I had to write a lot of new music for the new edits during that time as well. Oh, and it seemed like he was a lot happier with the film that he was making then. He was not all that happy with it before.
Yeah. I guess I'll just jump ahead to my talk about your collaborations with Lowery.
Sure.
I'm a huge fan of hearing about these creative combos, whether it be a cinematographer in a film and a director or a composer. So how is your communication with David Lowery, who you've been working with for more than a decade? How has it evolved since his first film, Saint Nick, back in 2009? And what were some of your first impressions upon meeting him?
How has it evolved? We don't have to say as much now to get to what we're looking for or to understand what the other person is trying to say with what they've made. And I think that his musical vocabulary has increased a little bit, though he always had a pretty good understanding of how to communicate musically, especially for someone who is not a musician. I think that for the most part, I've been able to find the music that fits his stories a little faster as the time has gone, although that was not true on Green Knight. It took us a long time to find what we were looking for.
Yeah.
My first impressions on meeting him, he seemed like a really sweet, enthusiastic man. He was fairly introverted.
Mhm.
Yeah, a really easy collaborator, someone who lets the people around him express and contribute to the overall vision, like give a part of themselves to the story rather than trying to bend everybody to himself.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had only done 2 pieces initially for Saint Nick, correct?
Yeah.
And what I love about that is the evolution of that relationship from, doing a couple pieces. And I mean, I have a whole thing I want to talk about, you not even starting in film composition or feature composition, which I think is so cool to make that transition. But with with a social shift for the Green Knight, it's a medieval Arthurian legend, and what was it like leaping backward in time a millennia and in trying to create that atmosphere and trying to create that, because it doesn't have the exactly ye old type of, I think, like copy and paste atmosphere that maybe some movies that take place in that time follow. So what was that like creating that?
I don't ever have to worry about something that David makes following some cliches. So I've got that luxury of having space to create something that maybe is true in some way to the time period in which it exists, but doesn't have to follow any tropes or stereotypes. And what was it like? I did a lot of research, more research than I've done for any other film that we've worked on. There was a lot of stuff that I had some kind of connection to, because my parents are both church musicians and they're in the Anglican church. So a lot of the music from a mass in an Anglican church has roots in medieval music. So there's some things that were already there in my brain, but then I had to look. I didn't know anything about Middle English, and I did a fair amount of research into that version of English to find out how the language worked and what the sounds were, how the sounds of the words were different from what we speak now, how that might influence the music that I was making, and then also directly because I ended up writing a lot of songs for the film and a lot of lyrics, and most of those lyrics are in Middle English.
That's
so, yeah,
that's something I actually was fairly was happily surprised by. Was it wasn't all just instrumentals. It was you had actual songs in there with lyrics, and I thought that was interesting, and it was just one of the many shifts that The Green Knight had compared to most films like it. I love The Old Man and the Gun. What was it like jumping from a more modern time like The Old Man and the Gun all the way back to, like, how was that shift? How did that shift feel, having to dive backwards like that in time?
There was a break in between my work on both of those films. There probably was not as much of a break for David, since he's involved from beginning to end. But because I do the majority of my work in the post-production process,
Mhm.
I had, I don't know, like a year and a half in between before I even had to really start thinking about music for Green Knight. And one of the things that so far has been so delightful about collaborating with David is that he doesn't seem interested in repeating himself, and he seems more interested in, I mean, all of his films have a common aesthetic because he is himself. He can't get away from himself, and so he will tell stories the way that he tells them. But he's interested in telling different kinds of stories, and that means that I get a chance so far to make a bunch of different kinds of music, which is always been one of my passions. Like long before I met David, I played in bands for a long time, but I also I studied jazz for a bit, and I used to play jazz in restaurants, like in a little jazz trio to help pay the bills. And I studied a fairly wide range of genres of music over the years, and so getting to explore different genres for me is like somebody's giving me a 7-course meal. Like I don't just have to get the entree and then I'm done. Like I can do a little bit of everything.
I've always wanted to. I find it more fascinating getting to talk with someone who working in film wasn't their jumping off point. You know, what was it like going from touring across the country, and I also want to ask about touring with David Bowie, into composing for features? How was that transition?
It was unexpected. I wasn't looking to do film music, but when I met David and he reached out to me and asked me about making music for his stuff, it just sounded like fun. I liked him and I liked the movies that he was making. And then as I started doing more of that, more film music, it seemed to make a lot of sense for my background. Like you're right, I didn't go to school for film music. I didn't intend to get into this world, but I have played music since I was a little kid. I have a classical background. I used to play in orchestras. I grew up playing the violin and then the viola after that. And then my training in school, I have a degree in playwriting because I was really interested in theater stuff for a long time. And so I have a little bit of training and a lot of interest in story arcs and characters and motivation and storytelling structure in general. So if you put that together, it sounds like someone who would be a good person to make music for movies. But I don't know, my real passion was like playing shows and touring, and that's what I was trying to do full time. It's very difficult to do that full time. Especially now in a pandemic, but even when I was trying to do it, you know, there are some people that have immense success doing it, and I think that I've had more success doing it than 95% of people who try. And even for me, it was tough to make that like an actual full-time job.
What was it? When it came to the, I guess the initial impulse or decision to start working on Saint Nick, you know, I mean, I love hearing that idea of Lowry had what, $12,000 to work on Saint Nick, which is something around that area, which is insane to think about, because I mean, to get something done even at that amount of money is incredibly awesome and rare. And now he's I think the last couple of films upwards of 15 million or so, which is still on the on the cheap side when it comes to the types of movies being made.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that shift, I guess, in the cultures, kind of in the popularity culture been?
It's a little surreal. Um, we made Saint Nick, and then we made a short film called Pioneer,
Mhm.
and then we made a small indie film called Ain't Them Bodies Saints, and then we made Pete's Dragon for Disney. It's not an arc that sounds
No,
like it makes sense to me, um, but it is what happened. I I I'm surprised that it happened. I'm surprised that I was able to do all of those films. Um, I'm grateful for David to keep advocating on my behalf. Like he really fought to have me do the music for several of the films that he's made, where people that had money or people who were in charge did not want, not that they didn't want me there. They just wanted
they
someone
just
with,
would have gone for someone more established or something like that in
yeah,
that
someone
time.
with more experience. It wasn't personal.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, yeah, it's very strange. I feel like the work that we did on Ain't Them Bodies Saints is not that far away from the work that we're doing now. Like I'm grateful to have more money to pay more bills, but you know, to have a like a wider range of options for um, musicians to hire and musical expression that can be expanded a bit. But I feel like our approach has not changed that much in terms of how both David and I think about the music for his films. His films always feel to me, no matter the size of the story, like they're very down to earth, very intimate,
Intimate.
vulnerable.
They're very. It's almost like you guys work from the same brain. Everything is very cohesive and introspective almost.
Very fragile.
Yeah.
His films are more fragile than a lot of films, and it feels very real to my experience of existence. Existence feels very fragile to me, and I like seeing that reflected in the movies that I watch. So it's really easy for me, like especially a ghost story. And
Mhm.
it's still the easiest film I've ever done, and I just had so few questions for him, and most of the music that's in the film is the first draft.
I was going to
That
say, I read somewhere that upwards of three-fourths of the first of Ghost Story's score was the first draft, which is so. That's so you never hear about like such a knockout punch like that when it comes to, especially when I mean films, but especially when it comes to the score. There's always different passes or different um, layers that they go through, but it's so interesting to hear. Which I also love. I love A Ghost Story so much because of, and I mean, this is also why it ties into the Green Knight, is its sparse dialogue. It's little to no, and most of the film is told through visual and auditory storytelling, which puts a lot of weight into what's on screen and what people are hearing in the theater. So what's it like working with? That's why I love describing it as an atmosphere, because it's very much like you're on a walk through uh, when Gawain is walking through the woods, and you can almost feel, and you just all you hear is him panting and the sounds coursing through everything. It's very much an experience of an atmosphere. So what is that like, especially for A Ghost Story in the Green Knight?
I always expect with David's films that there won't be very much dialogue, and that when music is happening, it will be upfront, and there will be a lot of focus and attention given to it, because that seems to be the kind of storytelling that he likes
Mhm.
to make. And it's also, I think, the kind for which I am most easily usable. I because I play the violin, I have predisposition to focus on melodies, because the violin is often given the melodic part, and well, especially in solo work, and because the violin is like the show off, one of the main show off instruments of the classical world. Like how many viola concertos have been written over the last 500 years? Not that many. How many
Yeah.
violin concertos? More than anyone that
I can think of, yeah.
in their lifetime, you know. So I do think in terms of melody a lot, and it works well for his films when there's not a lot of dialogue going on. The melodies can be at the front of the storytelling. The Green Knight does not A Ghost Story does not have as much music in it as Green Knight does.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of music even for the Green Knight that did not make the cut that I wrote. So I basically wrote music for the entire film. The entire film was scored.
Yeah.
For the Green Knight. It's really rewarding process, but really difficult to like. It's just a lot of music. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
And it's very lively. It's very, there's a lot of something that I love to pick up on when it comes to film scores is sounds that aren't from instruments. It's very, atmospheric again, but it very much, it grounds you in what's on screen more than if you were just to have something, I guess, fairly generic. When it comes to talking with Lowery, what have you learned about, I guess, filmmaking through talking with him? Because I understand he's a huge movie aficionado.
It's very rare that I can mention a movie that David has not seen, that he hasn't watched yet.
Yeah.
He's watched so many films. He knows more about films than just about anybody I know, but we never talk about the technical side of filmmaking.
Interesting.
It's not something that I know anything about, and it doesn't seem to matter to our process working on music. So what have I learned about filmmaking? I don't know. I've learned, like, I watched someone create some really beautiful shots. I've watched someone tell some incredible stories with very little dialogue. But what have I learned about actual filmmaking, technical? Like, I can't do a damn thing. Nothing. That's the answer. I've learned nothing.
What film scores do you of other, like, classic films have you taken note of?
Classic films. North by Northwest is one of my favorite film scores of all time. Bernard Herrmann. The Pawnbroker by Quincy Jones. Do the Right Thing by Bill Lee, Spike Lee's father. That's one of my favorite film scores that I've ever heard.
Do you think that your appreciation for music was instilled? You said that I read somewhere you started playing the violin at 3.
That's right.
And that's always so awe-inspiring to me, to have something like that, introduced into your life so early, and it makes so much of an impact. So that appreciation for music, how has that grown moving from moving into feature composing?
I think that for most of my childhood and adolescence, my relationship to classical music, Western classical music, was a utilitarian relationship. Like, I have to practice this because I have this violin lesson coming up. or I have to practice this because I have this orchestra competition happening, or I have to practice this because the youth orchestra that I play in is going to perform at the symphony hall in a month or so. That was it. And I didn't really care that much about the music that we were playing at the time. Like there were a few pieces that I really connected to, like the Firebird Suite by Stravinsky. I've always loved it, and I played it a couple times in school. And even now it's in my brain. But yeah, I think I took it for granted a bit, as a kid would do. But now, when I have to write orchestral music, I think I would not be able to do that were it not for the education that I received as a child. And not only the education, but the fostering of appreciation for complex music. My parents say that I was very musical regardless of the violin. My dad says that I would really latch on to music in commercials on TV. And so he would sing commercial jingles to me to amuse me, but that if he sang it in the wrong key, I would correct him. I don't know if that's really true. That's what he says, though.
That sounds like the origin story of Daniel Hart. That would be in our first scenes of that movie.
Yeah, but I have an older brother. He also started the violin when he was 3 years old. He is not a musician. He's very appreciative of music, and he has a daughter, and she plays the violin, and he helps her with her violin lessons, and helps her learn stuff. So he still has a relationship to music and a relationship to the violin, but it was not the same relationship that I had. Whatever DNA got passed down to the two of us. For me, it was like a all-consuming kind of passion, and for him, it was just something that he really enjoys.
You toured with several bands, but I have to know, in 2004 you toured with David Bowie. What was that like?
I toured in a band that opened up for David Bowie.
Yeah,
we opened up for him for like a month.
That's insane.
It is insane. Like? Again, doesn't sound real to me.
It doesn't, but like that would be the next. Down the line, you make a pit stop at working there and then doing that, and it's just a really interesting. I think formula is even too strict of a word, because it's so much more fluid than that. So when you're going around the country doing that, what was that? How was that all around you?
He was really sweet. We had very few interactions with him, but whenever we did, I just felt so welcome. The band I was in was called the Polyphonic Spree. It was a symphonic pop band, so there were like 26 members in the band at the time. And I was playing violin and viola in that band, and there was a small choir in the band as well. And we ended up doing one of his encore songs with him. So we did that maybe not the first week we were there, but then once we got there, we rehearsed it with him. And so we did that for 3 weeks worth of shows. And we toured all across the US and Canada with him for about a month in 2004. I left the band after that because I had a bunch of other stuff that I was doing, but they did more touring with him after that too, like another 3 weeks or so of touring with Bowie. I watched his show almost every night. He seemed to be really enjoying himself. He's one of the best performers I've ever seen. I would be in the same seat every night, or just in the same area, just having that opportunity. And there's that whole idea of
one night, well, and one night for every month, and just, yeah, like 100% getting that opportunity to view such, talent has got to be very interesting.
It was really special. Really special. I'm sad that he's gone.
Yeah.
I the last album that he put out, I think the last album he put out was Black Star.
In 2016, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, it's really. I thought it was some of his best work.
Isn't that interesting that there will always be those people, those iconic figures where they'll have, it's always interesting to me, the people that have a classic era where if you can search it up somewhere, you'll find compiled classics, and then they keep going. And you know what I just saw actually today, which is just interesting? Elton John had made an album over quarantine.
Oh, really?
With several other musicians and performers. And I just thought that was so interesting to think, what, he's like in his 70s now, I think, or some around that area. And he did a farewell tour a couple of years ago, which I was like, all right, I mean, you're capping it off strong. You're going out and you're doing your thing. And then to push it further than that. So it just to think of, yeah, exactly. To think of what with all these people. Yeah, that's so interesting to me. Yeah. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It means a lot. I'm a huge fan. I'm looking forward to whatever you have whatever you're working on next.
Thanks, Tim. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.